What is up? What is up? Welcome back to the Tekamaku channel where we talk about notary businesses and basically how to optimize some of the strategies that are available to you to make sure that you're going forward, not going backwards. But today, seriously, I just want to jump on and really go through, do somewhat of a recap of what I was just having a chat, having a conversation with a fellow notary, and we were just talking about Thumbtack, how they're interested in Thumbtack. And the conversation was just so great because it really took me back to, when I started on the platform and some of the first questions that I know a lot of people might have. So I'm gonna just talk on some Thumbtack topics, and if there's some questions, I can definitely help you with how Thumbtack, understanding how Thumbtack works. And really, there's some basic things that I want to touch on. So, if you do like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to learn more about Thumbtack, you can always, contact me at drtech.com, drtekk.com, or you can go see the Thumbtack for Notaries book. That's thumbtackfornotaries.com. And, check out the videos, check out the lessons, and check out some of the background info so that you can optimize this lead generation strategy. So this is a notary that, so kind of recapping on this conversation, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown about what we were talking about. And here's the overall sort of gist of it. So she's very interested in using her notary stamp. And if that's you, then you're in the right place because as of now, the market, the by market, I mean the real estate market, which is traditionally what people, they tend to gravitate towards the real estate market, loan closing, loan signings, things that relate to home ownership, field inspections, real estate, flipping, wholesaling. That's typically what people, they tend to gravitate towards notaries. I'm saying they tend to gravitate in that direction. And what happens subsequently as a result, not necessarily a bad thing, but this is what happens. You find yourself, and tell me if this is you. No, definitely leave a comment. You find yourself with the inability to get clients outside of the traditional sign up for a listing or a signing service or some put your name on a directory. You might find yourself struggling to get clients outside of that environment. And here's an example of when this notary and I, we were conversating, we were talking about, I made the suggestion, she's been working with me for a while, and, as a subcontractor and giving her appointments. And what happens is you build up a confidence. And this is naturally what happens when you're not in an environment or you're outside of a box where everything is the same thing. Everything is just the same. You're constantly doing real estate. You're constantly doing loan closings. You're constantly doing refinance. You're printing your papers, talking to title companies. You're getting paid 40 days sometimes later, 2 weeks later sometimes. When you break away from that, and now you have to do a lot of that on your own. And sometimes it can handcuff, it can freeze a lot of people. So they get they kind of forget ultimately why they started this business, right? Why they got into this business and gave themselves another job. Unknowingly, by the way, not to their own fault. But here's where it's a mistake to use the word loan signing and business in the same sentence. It's impossible. Can't do it because it's not the same. And so here's an example. For instance, this notary I've been, keeping in contact with and working with, very professional, very good, but she's ready to go out on her own. She's ready to branch off and launch her own thing, which as a result of doing things outside of what you've traditionally been doing, it gives you that confidence. So there's no surprise. There's really no surprise that now they're you would be a lot more confident because you've seen liquor license applications, you've seen LLC agreements, you've seen adoption paperwork, you've seen passport applications, you've seen identity claim documents, you've seen theft affidavits, You've seen it all. You've seen everything. You've seen trust packages. You've seen power of attorneys. You've been in hospitals. You've been in nursing homes. You've been in businesses. Uh, you've been in union halls. I mean, you just name it. You've seen it all. That exposure, it does something to you. Wouldn't you agree? I hope you would agree because it actually does. You being exposed, you can't substitute experience. And experience in a short amount of time where there's a lot of momentum. You just going and going and going. It gives you a confidence. So now she's ready naturally to go out on her own, and rightfully so. Because listen, I got into this business to start a business and to not have another job. I was very intentional, very purposeful about that. Ultimately, that's what most people did. And if you find yourself not in that position, then what happened? Where did you kind of make the switch? And this is oftentimes where it happens. People get into the loan signing business, but it's not a business. It's not. It's actually not. It's not. It's a job, really. Got something in my head. And once you kind of accept that, then now you could address it and you can confront it with a proper strategy, and it makes a difference. So going back to this recap of that's basically why I'm here. I want to give you guys a breakdown of what we were talking about because I felt like it was so powerful. So now she's interested in Thumbtack. I suggested, you know what, you should think about Thumbtack. Thumbtack is a great source of leads. It's actually the second best next to Google. Google's number one for obvious reasons, but Thumbtack is a close, very, very close number two, and might even be 1A. And the reason why is because, I mean, I can name a couple, a ton of reasons, but mainly the person who's using Thumbtack, that's not the same person who would necessarily use Google. I mean, they might, but that person who uses Google, you know, Google does everything, right? But the person who does Thumbtack is they're a little bit more. Let's just say they've taken. If the person who used Google took 3 steps, the person who used Thumbtack they took 4. They're a little bit ahead in their journey to get this notarization executed. You know what I mean? They're a little bit more high urgency. In other words, like they want to make this happen a lot sooner than the person who's on Google. Of course, there's exceptions to that, but for the most part, in my experience, what I've experienced is that the person who's on Thumbtack, they're quicker, they're faster. They want to kind of get things moving. So keeping that in mind, so I told her, hey, listen, Thumbtack is a great option, especially if you think you're ready, and I think you're ready. There's nothing that I see in my examination of you or my overview of how you perform that keep you from doing it. So go ahead. Now, here's the thing. And for people who may not have known what Thumbtack is, you've never used it, you heard about it, but you never, like, somebody told you about it. Somebody shared, somebody said, hey, you should go get Thumbtack, but they didn't really tell you what to do. Has that ever happened to you? Somebody make this suggestion, but they can't give you their expertise on how to be successful on the platform. So when I told her, hey, you should get Thumbtack, I knew exactly and what she was going to expect, which is basically, listen, let me let me buckle up. You can Thumbtack is great. It's a great, great, great lead source. But listen, there's some rules. All right. First of all, it's not free. That's the big one right there. It's not free. It's a pay per lead service. That means you get on the platform and you have to pay for it. Our conversation today, and bless her for her insight. And she's been around me for a while, and so she moves differently, and she knows that there's some success here, but it's not really if I'm doing it or not. It's really just strategy. So there is some strategy, and there's some attack, some approach on how you attack this. So she asked me, they charge like $12 for the leads, and I say, listen, is it worth it? The question is, yeah, because You you pay $12 in advance to the opportunity, for speaking with this client potentially. And here's why you should pay, right? Because this person, like I said, the person was on Google taking 3 steps. Person Thumbtack, they're already on the fourth or fifth. They're much further in advance. So it's up to you to really book this client. So our conversation, you know, was about, and I'm going to give you this as a preparation for when you use Thumbtack. So there's two types of ways that people will reach out to you. Because I asked her, when somebody reaches out to you, what do you say to them? And this is oftentimes where people get stuck. So, but before you even get to that point, understand two things about Thumbtack. If Because she was telling me, well, people are reaching out to me. Does that mean that Thumbtack is charging me? So I said, all right, let's make something clear. If somebody's reaching out to you, you are definitely getting paid. You're definitely getting charged, rather. You're definitely getting billed because Thumbtack is going to charge you whenever somebody directly reaches out to you. So there's a difference between the type of clients. There's a direct client, and then there's the what I like to call the farm, right? These are opportunities. These are, hey, Mr. Steven client, he hasn't had anybody respond to them. Hey, Mrs. Stephanie client, she hasn't had anybody respond to her. Hey, Mr. Joe client, this is a good fit for the parameters that you set up. You should think about reaching out to that person. You see the difference? If you reach out to the person, then you get charged. All right. If they, respond back, you get charged. Now, it might be a good opportunity based upon your parameters, based upon what they need, how long ago they posted, how many people have responded to them at that point, their location. I talk about that in the book about how to really hone in on to, and what is a good, so that's why I call it the farm, because it's like, well, what is a good cattle? Which one is the best one? How do you pick the best one? You can't just pick anyone. You can't just, there's got to be some type of approach, some type of strategy involved in that. Otherwise, you'll waste a lot of money really quickly. So, on the other hand, there's the Thumbtack direct clients. So, these are when people are looking for jobs, or I mean, these are clients, by the way. They're looking for a notary job to get executed. And then they go directly after you. They see, Mr. Smith Notary, you, I want you. Something about your picture looked nice. Something about your name, your reviews, something about where you're located, something compelled me to reach out to you. And then, are you available? Now, here's where the charges come in. So we just left away from the opportunity section. Now we're in the direct clients. In the direct clients, now you are getting billed because you were just sitting there minding your business, doing what you do. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're at the beach, maybe you're shopping, maybe you're asleep, maybe you're in the shower. You're just doing what you do. You're driving. That's your other business that you got going on. And then somebody out of the blue reaches out to you. Now, the question I have to ask you is, isn't that what you wanted? Isn't that what you wanted? You wanted people to reach out to you for work, isn't it? So here, you got it. Thumbtack got their cut, so they charge you, they bill you whatever the cost of that client, whatever the cost of that lead was. And no, it's not guaranteed. And this is where people get really apprehensive about Thumbtack and what really turns them off. And this is the conversation that we were having. I told her, people are going to reach out to you. Are you going to reach out to them back? Because Thumbtack got paid. It's up to you to now get this client. All right, so let's think about some stuff. I love this. I love Thumbtack. I love it because not only do people stay away from it, people tend to stay away from things that are a little bit outside of their norm, outside of the box. But it could absolutely be a gold mine, and it could also be a training and teaching lesson for you. So people read. I Thumbtack direct clients come to me now. You're $10 in the hole, or however much that client, the cost of that lead. How much of it was, $8 or $5. You're already in the hole simply because that person reached out to you. Now you've got to recover that as a business owner. You've got to factor that into your pricing and how you go after this person. That should all be a factor. It should all play into, and this is the conversation we're having. So you should always think about, it's not the fact that Thumbtack charge you up front. It's not. It's up to you to get this client. If you're confident and you're secure in your ability as a business owner to close this deal, then the cost that Thumbtack charges you, it really doesn't matter. So she was saying, help me close the deals. How do y'all close the deals? All right. So this is where strategy and Thumbtack comes in. So now that we understand who's reaching out to us, we've already paid. We've already, paid for this person to appear from front of us, just like no different than any other digital marketing. You pay for the advertising. You pay for that. The person to get in front of you, person calls you, you pay for that, no matter what you think. So how do you now advance this client in order to book them? So here's where strategy, here's where call scripts, here's where negotiation, persuasion, here's where sales. This is the business side of the notary industry. That loan signing agents and that it has nothing to do with these things. Two things are separate. They're not the same things. This is why I say here's the business side of the notary industry that signing agents don't they don't involve that. Usually, signing agents are looking for more databases, more signing services, more side hustles, field inspections, permit runnings, all these, fingerprinting. All that stuff is all good and fine, but that's not notary. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I'm saying when you're in the business of notary now, you are belly to belly, hand to hand combat with clients, overcoming objections, speaking to their desires, selling your process, building rapport, you know, closing. And so if you're on Thumbtack, it's no different. So what do you have to do with Thumbtack? How do you be successful on Thumbtack? How to use it? Until recently, Thumbtack did not uh, show the phone number for a lot of the people who were a lot of the clients who were reaching out to the professionals. So the person would essentially reach out to somebody who they needed some work done, and you only could talk to them through the app. You could only text them and communicate to them via app. The entire exchange took place on the app. Now, I want to say about a year and a half ago, they released the ability to contact the person. To uh, you know, you got their phone number and you could call them. So that changed the strategy a little bit. I think it made it better. I think it enhanced it. I always took the approach that you should pull the person right off of the Thumbtack platform immediately anyway. So I've developed strategies, and I talk about this in the Thumbtack for Notaries book at thumbtackfornotaries.com, how to pull the person off of the Thumbtack platform and onto your empire, onto your playing field, and onto your soil. So now the rules are your rules and not Thumbtack's rules. But nevertheless, the person reaches out to you, and now it's up to you to reach out to them via text as well. They reach out to you via text, you return and reach out to them via text. Same method. I would not immediately call the person. I know there's people who have that strategy, and I would not recommend that. I would reach out to them via in the same manner that they reach out to you. Okay. At what point would I call them? Now that is going to vary. I would say no less than 24 hours. I wouldn't wait any more than that. I would say the following day at least, because the person who's reaching out to you, if they wanted to call you, they would call you. Put it that way. But they didn't. What they did was they reached out to you via text message. So the fact that they reach out to you via text, you respond via text. You respond in the same manner. And that's going to be the best way to contact them. So as I'm recapping this conversation with this notary, and she's saying, "Help me close." All she kept saying was, help me close. How do I close?" And that's a great question. That's an intuitive question. That's the question you want to ask. So, what questions would you want? And I'm asking her, and what questions would you want to know if you were getting a notary? What would you want to know? And she was just saying, well, I think I would just know what kind of document it is, which is, and I'm not surprised that she said that. Because my question to her, again, let's recap. She asked me, well, help me close. What questions should I ask? So, and I asked her, well, what questions would you want to know if you yourself was getting a notary? And she said, I would want to know what kind of document it was. And again, not wrong, right? There's really not a wrong way to do this, but there are inefficient ways to do this. The reason why she said that, the document title, and I'm going to prove to you why you don't need to know the name of the document at all in order to book the appointment. Unnecessary. As a matter of fact, it can probably get you into more confusion, not trouble, but get you into more confusion. If they never told you the so and here's now kind of backing up a little bit. This notary, she's worked with me for a long time, and I've sent her on several dozen appointments where she did not know ahead of time what the document was. And was she still able to execute the appointment? Was she still able to execute it correctly and professionally? Yes. And that's the question that I asked her. I said, she said, because I asked her, I said, if you were getting notary done, what would you ask? What kind of questions do you think you should know? She said, well, I would need to know the name of the document. That's usually the first thing that people say. A person who was trained as a signing agent, that's the first thing that they want to know. What is the name of the document? And as somebody who's not skilled in the business aspect, that could easily throw off your whole entire appointment, your ability to book that appointment. Okay, what else do you need to know? You need to know location, you need to know who's there, you need to know, do they have a valid form of ID? Because if they don't have, they can't prove their identification, then that kind of defeats the entire purpose of the appointment, right? You can't really help them at that point. So now that you have that information, here's where people, and we're at this point we're role playing. Now I'm telling her, are you going through those questions? Where are you? The location, need to know who's all going to be signing a document. Is it 5 people or is it 15 people or is it just you? Your sick mother or is it the dead uncle in the garage, right? And does your dead uncle have ID? No. So I'm just playing. Once you've verified all the information, you can help them. Now the person says, how much? About how much would this cost? Since you're mobile, I know the charge is gonna be higher. So about what's gonna cost me? That question is where people sink. So we're talking about Thumbtack. We're talking about how to be successful on Thumbtack. And you're doing this exchange versus, through a text message. If you call the person, it's even better. But you haven't spoken to them at all. You're using Thumbtack, you're using messages. You got your questions, and then you get to the point where you have to reveal your price. And here's where people get very caught up. Here's where people they basically sink their ship, or they go on and they do tremendous things and help another family out. This is where you decide if this is actually worth my time or if this is just something that didn't work out, didn't pan out because people lied about how much they're making. No, this is the business side of it. How much do you charge? Can you answer that question and give me a number? So I'm asking her this, and she didn't have an answer. Well, she did have an answer, but I didn't ask her. I said, let's just say she said $100. So I said, well, what's that based on? It's based on a standard that I have to sign this, and they have this, and I have to travel this. And I said, where are you getting these numbers from? Really, where are you getting these numbers from? These numbers are, well, this is based upon some of the research that I did from other websites. Yeah, that's based upon let me I'm gonna tell you why that's not the way to go about pricing and how to go about pricing. Not the way to go about pricing because you're basing somebody else's race off of what they do. Here's the thing, and tell me if you notice this. Most notaries that you encounter is their businesses is them. It's literally them. It's so much them that it has their name on it. Stephanie J. Smith Notary, Ron B. Smith Notary. It even has their name on it. This price structure and rate schedule is based upon them, not you, them. So you see why it would be a disadvantage to base what you do off of somebody else? That's number one. Number two, there is an actual formula that we have to come up with a real price so that you actually have a rate that's worth your time and it makes sense. Again, person reaches out to you on Thumbtack, the lead costs $12. You're already negative. You're already $12 in the hole. So how do you get out of that hole? And how does it actually make sense for you to run this business and it be profitable and be sustainable and you enjoy it and you deliver excellent service, not just being affordable, right? Because affordable is going to get you out of business, especially when you're used to just signing up for signing services and their prices are going down every single day. Oh, I'm gonna be a Ron Tech. I'm gonna do a remote online notary. Okay, well, their price is gonna go down every single day. You have to have the business and get your own clients. In order to get your own clients, you got to know what to say. In order to know what to say and to close the deal, you got to know what to charge. In order to know what to charge, you got to actually base it on your business model, not someone else's, not everybody else across town. So how do you do that? It's what we call the freedom number. To divide your freedom number, which is all of your utilities, not the stuff that changes from month to month to month, but the stuff that stays constant throughout the year. Take that number, and then you divide that number by the hours of availability. So if you work 9 to 5, that means you're not available. Okay. If you go to church every Sunday, that means you're not available. So you divide your freedom number, all your bills, all utilities, divided by your hours of availability, meaning everything that you do throughout the week that you can't also be doing notary. So if I go to school from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock every day, I can't do notary from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, can I? Now, I'm not. Later on, we're going to find out why you can book appointments during that time, and you yourself don't actually have to, execute the appointments. But what I'm saying is, if you work 9 to 5, you can't run appointments in that time, can you? So that 9 to 5 time is not counted in the hours of availability. If you volunteer every Saturday with your kids' soccer team, you can't run appointments in that time, can you? So the hours of availability is counted outside of that 2 or 3, 4 hours that you spend with your son or whatever. You have a book club on Thursday. I can go on and on and on. The point is, you live your life and you should absolutely continue to do that. You should do the things that make you happy. The notary business, not the notary job, but the notary business should not interfere with what you have going on with your regular life. That's what makes you happy. You want to learn a new language? So every Tuesday from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you take classes. You should continue to do those things and not let notary interfere with that. But tech notary makes me money. Yeah, of course it does. But your happiness is at what cost? And you can continue to book appointments during that time, but you, because you have a business, are not fulfilling the work. You're not doing the work, which is what a job is. At the signing table, you have to be there. Every loan closing, you have to be there. You have to print the paper. You have to sort it. You have to drive. You are doing the work. That's why it's a job and not a business. Notary business, you have your freedom number, you have the hours of availability, you divide those, and that's going to give you what you should be charging per appointment. All right, so let's say the freedom number is $5,000, all my utilities, and then I have about 100 or I have about 40 hours a week outside of my other obligations that I can dedicate and commit to notary. Divide those two numbers, that should spit out 125, something like that. And it's around that, I believe so. And $125 an hour is what you should be charging per appointment. Now, let's say appointment takes only 10 minutes. So do what you will. Cut that in half. And that's what minimum you should be getting every time you go outside your house, every time you go and execute an appointment. Now, there's also other factors that are involved in there. How urgent is it? Do they need witnesses? Do they need printing? Do they need you to drop off multiple locations? Are there other, uh, you know, shipping requests or special things that that they require of you? So that's where you upsell, and that's where you cross sell, and that's where you're building your profit as a business. On the other hand, you're a signing agent. What happens? I tell you, hey, 2:30 on Friday, there's gonna be Mr. and Mrs. Client. They're gonna need a refinance package. It's gonna pay you $50. Yes or no? you say yes, and then you have all the information up in front in advance. You have all the things that you need. You know exactly what you're walking into. That's the job. The business, on the other hand, when you're on Thumbtack, you're running the business, you're running a marketing campaign, you're advertising, and you're getting charged in advance. You're booking the client. They're playing on your playing field. So the business, you factor in much more components, and then that's what gives you your price. So when you're so using something like Thumbtack is absolutely fantastic. I use Thumbtack for well over 5 years. I've always had success with it. And matter of fact, I did release a book called Thumbtack for Notaries. You can go to drtech.com and have a look at it. There's going to be another edition being released soon where I'm going to talk about process serving, which is another related field to notary. It's been very profitable with Thumbtack. And dare I say, it's been a little bit more profitable than notary. It's been more profitable in the sense that, again, there's a couple, I'm going to talk about this in the book. The factors that, meaning the cost of the lead versus the amount of work that you're doing, is process serving more profitable than notary? I would make the case that yes, it is. It definitely has a notary is so cool because when when you're running this as a signing agent job versus a notary business, signing agents on one hand, they know exactly what they're getting into every single time. Signing service assigns you to Mr. and Mrs. Client. They're going to refinance. It's going to be on Friday. It's going to be at 2:30. You're going to get paid $60. Notary business, in contrast, you pick up the phone, you don't know what you're getting ready to hear, do you? You don't know what's getting ready to be said on the other line. You don't know what person is getting ready to say whatever nonsense, or what law firm, or what hospital, or what jail cell, or what business, parking garage business, what roofing company. You don't know what engineering firm. You don't know what they're getting ready to say. You don't know what they're getting ready to ask for. So that's why the business side of it that comes in, it plays to your skill. And you can absolutely be great at this. When people reach out to you, it's very powerful. When people call you, it's very powerful. When they contact you, whether it's Thumbtack, whether it's Google, whether it's from your website, it's very powerful. And notary, for overwhelming majority of notary business owners, if you fit into that category, then you know just how powerful it is. So I came here to talk about Thumbtack. Hopefully, you guys learned a little bit of something about Thumbtack. I'm gonna start doing some of these live streams and just breaking down some questions and answering. Because again, I this stuff happens on a daily basis, and the information that could handcuff you is out there. There's a lot of information that's fear based, and it keeps you from being able to enjoy the notary industry as much as possible. And I always say there's a difference between the notary within the industry. There's a job and there's a business, right? If you got into this industry for business, then you got to be very very clear that the job is not the business. That these are two separate things. It wasn't until I realized that they were two separate things that I really started to prosper and really started to get clear on how I can help people. And I got better at it. I got better once I realized, okay, if I'm relying on a signing service or a database or the yellow pages or I'm hoping that some lucky person just happens to see my profile on some directory and then them calling me. You know, you can go ahead and do that, but understand that that's the job portion. That is, it really is. And I feel bad for people who get that confused because notary business is so much more. It's probably what you had in mind. And but the confusion with the notary job can really make you feel less than, and then it leaves you wandering and seeking for all these business cards and goodie bags and stuff that never worked. Frankly, it never worked, and we're starting to see that now. How that stuff, it never worked. That's why so many people have bit the dust, and some people are transitioning out of it. But the notary business has always worked. People still want notaries. Like, no matter what happens to the real estate market, people still call notaries. They still need it done. Well, I need another source for people for leads. Oh, do you? I would question that. I would say the source is there. People, the way that you get in front of them because their habits have changed, the behaviors have changed. People have already been used to buying things online, putting their credit card in. People are used to that now. That habit has changed. You have to go out and now sell your process and why your option is much better than the person across town. And Thumbtack is a great way to do it because the person reaches out to you. So I appreciate you guys for sticking on this long and hanging out with me and getting some of this insight with Thumbtack. So definitely go out there and don't be afraid to use it. Again, if you want to know more about the Thumbtack platform, my recommendation is to learn about the platform first before you jump on it. I try to give you a quick breakdown about what to expect. You got the opportunity section, you got the direct clients. Opportunities you don't pay for until you reach out to them. The direct clients you do pay for because they reach out to you. And you should pay for them because that person, like I said, the person who uses Google's 3 steps. Person who uses Thumbtack, they're 4 steps. You should pay for that person. They're a little bit more advanced in the process of getting an executed notary. And if you can help them, which if you have a notary commission, you can, right? You can, even if you don't have a notary commission, you can still take the call and still assign a notary to it. So that's how the notary business operates. But you go through that, knowing that difference, knowing the distinction between those two, very powerful. So learn about the platform first. Don't just jump on it because Thumbtack is a money making company. They make a lot of money because they don't just do notary; they do other professional services as well. A lot of home related stuff, a lot of contracting stuff. And as a matter of fact, I use Thumbtack to get my TV mounted and my entertainment system mounted. Right. I also happen to have a book on it. So Thumbtack for Notaries is the book. Go to drtech.com, drtekk.com. Get more information about the resources I have available. Otherwise, thanks for kicking it with me, and I'll see you guys next time. All right. Don't forget to subscribe.